Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Devtoberfest. It's Front End Friday again, and today we have Natalie and Mark here, and they're going to talk about the SAP BTP SDK for Android and how to build elegant enterprise apps with it using SAP Fiori. And without further ado, I hand it over to them and have fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We do the obligatory, let me share my screen. Awesome. So just as we were introduced, we're going to be going over how to build elegant enterprise apps for Android with SAP Fiori and SAP Build Code. I'm Natalie. I've been at the company for around 3 years as the UX designer on the Fiori mobile for Android team. And just as a quick introduction, passing along to Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark. I'm one of the developers on the SAP BTP SDK for Android team, and I've been with SAP longer than I care to mention. It's been about 24 years now. So yeah, it's been a bit.
So thanks, Mark. So of course, we just went over our introductions on who's going to be speaking today. And of course, what's user experience design without the user part of it? So we'll be going into a scenario. Then actually, I'll be going over like designing the UI. I'll hand it over to Mark to go about building the UI. And then, yeah, any questions in the chat or stream and whatnot, we can take a look at and answer. So first off, you hear a lot about design systems. So what's the actual benefit of this? We work across a lot of different teams, for example, the accessibility team, a lot of our product teams. So we're able to make sure that these products are accessible, that they've already been like user validated. If there are customers who would like to have their own theming, they're able to do so. We also want to have a cross-platform experience just to make sure that this design is able to go from, let's say, a Pixel to a tablet. And then we also make sure with the design system that across the app experience that all of the UI is looking consistent with one another, like they're from the same family. And it's beautiful because then they're connected to our software development kit, so it makes designing and developing a lot easier, I'd say, a lot quicker. So now, like I said before, we have to start with our user and the whole scenario. So we'll go through just an example right here. So welcome to our marketplace app. Basically, this is an internal application for employees to be able to browse, order any sort of office supplies or equipment that they might need for their home office or even in office. So users could search through a product catalog, compare items, order their items, check their approval processes from managers, all of that good stuff. And if you need to change your shipping address, you can do that as well. So design is definitely an iterative process. So looking at our design right now, yeah, looks great, but let's test it with some users first, maybe, and see if there's something we can iterate on. So this brings in Jim. Jim is an SAP employee. He's already used this application to purchase some equipment. However, he did note that this application doesn't really offer any way to like easily track the order, and he doesn't really know when the delivery date is going to be, so it's a little hard to figure out here. So Jim's goal is to not only locate all of their orders, but also track that delivery process so they know when it's actually going to be delivered. And of course, we have these pain points where it's tedious to find ordered items, and yeah, this order status is not easily understood. So by taking in all of these different goals and all these pain points from the feedback we got, we're able to sort of formulate a success criteria, or in other words, we like to call it kind of a user story that we can base kind of our requirements off of. So in the case of Jim, his user story would be, as an employee, I want to quickly search and keep track of items so that I know that my preferred equipment will be delivered safely. So now that we have our user story in place and the user needs in mind, we know we need to look at this marketplace application and enhance this existing page and add new pages so Jim can effortlessly check the latest order updates. He can review the delivery status easily and, of course, have access to all orders in place just in case he has a couple in progress. You know, nice to see them all. So now that we kind of have our idea and our direction of where we need to iterate within the application, we can actually go about building it now. Now, where do we even start when we're looking at a design? Great place to go is our guidelines. So you can go to www.experience.sap.com, Fiori-design- and depending on your operating system, you can do Android for Android, of course, iOS for iOS. Very straightforward. So you can learn a lot more about our design system. You can look at some different like floor plans, components, our theming, our colors, fonts, whatnot. So it's a really good place to just get familiarized and explore a little bit before you go into Figma and start designing. And speaking of Figma, we also now have our community Figma UI kits available. Super exciting. So we have SAP Fiori for Android, iOS, Wear OS, Watch OS, and web. So we have a bunch available there. So if you go to www.figma.com/@SAP, you'll be able to find it there. But now how do I actually download this and start using this? Basically, let's say if you want SAP Fiori for Android, you just click into that UI kit from the link. It'll ask you to open it within Figma, then you'll have it copied as a draft, and then you'll have to publish it as a draft to your teams. And then finally, you will be able to open it from the assets panel and you can get started. And of course, having your own team library would be nice because it'll keep all like the updates that your team makes to it and stuff. So very nice and very convenient. So now that we have all of that covered, now let's actually go into our Figma UI kit and start designing a little bit. So moving on over to our Android playground. So looking over here, we have this home page right now from our current design. So basically on this page, we would want to enhance, we want to have a section for, all of the orders that users can view. And I need to make sure that on this home page that, highest priority info is shown first. And then, if user needs to dig into more detail, they can click into further detail pages. Otherwise known progressive disclosure, really, really great. Great to use in mobile design. So not only are we enhancing this page, but we're also adding some new pages. So we're going to add a sortable list with all of the past and current orders. We have the object details page for the actual order. And then you'll be able to see all the progress and all that. So you can click into the progress details and then user can, of course, have more like FAQ, contact actions, anything that might help them in their kind of order and checking their progress process. So for example, let's say if I'm looking at enhancing this section right here, and I want to change this recently viewed to maybe like your orders. So it's like easily accessible from the first level up, whatnot. So how can I take this card and how can I surface this progress and the status first and foremost? Because of course that's the most important here. So for example, I can look at the guidelines and let's say if I dig into the card topic and I look a little bit further into the card header, I can see right from the intro that says, oh, the optional card header allows for a quick overview of key information. So I can show the status of a card right through that card header. So that seems like a pretty good place to start and have that progress there. And of course, as you run into like more questions in your design, you're going to be referencing the guidelines kind of back and forth, and you'll kind of see how that all goes. So looking at our design space right here, let's say if I have a couple of little wireframes to go off of, good old pen and paper works, but everyone goes about it quite differently. So let's say I'm starting off with our home design and I want to change recently viewed to your orders so I can easily just go in, change your orders, see all. Okay. So I'll move this right here just so we can see this a little bit better. So if I click in right here, we can see that this is actually already connected to our card carousel in our design kit. So that's nice. That's all connected and whatnot. But I actually want to fix the card itself. So I can click into the card and let's see. So I won't need a footer, so I can quickly go over to this properties panel, turn off the footer. I know that for this I will need a top margin. I don't want my media image, but I would like a left accessory. And then I can use this extended header if I want to go in and change some stuff up. So it's looking like I want a 2-liner, so I can easily do that. And then I can change this to oh, nice. You have status info label. So for example, I can go in and I can say, oh, yes, this will be my new order. This one I'll change it maybe to a critical, and I'll say that I would like to, that will be preparing for our status. Oops. The live demos always go great, don't they? And that I don't know why actually. Oh, hello. Because I need to change it to 4. Okay, cool. And then for this, I actually I don't need the KPI, I don't need the row 3. I just want to say expected delivery, so I'm able to do so. So you can put that in there. Should be product title, and so that'll be SKU. And then now I see that I want to put some sort of progress indicator here. So I noticed that if I were to click into this card and I turn on the body, I have these placeholders here. So I only need one of those. So I can turn this off. And then looking through our card elements, okay, I see that we don't have that, step progress indicator, but the really great thing about the card body is that you can put a custom composable in there. So actually, I'm going to go to our design kit and I'm going to look up our step progress indicator. Awesome. So then when I click into our step progress indicator, you might need to, we're going to hide this section header right here. And then we're going to go into, actually, let's see, so we don't need right accessory, step name. Awesome. So then I can put in like my different step names, for example. Maybe I don't want to show this one. So maybe let's just put it as a dynamic. And then, yeah, for example, I can put all my step names in there. And for some reason, there's some sort of, there we go. I can hide. Oops. Sometimes we get all the layers. Awesome. So then, yeah, I'll go into each individual one. I can add my step names, whatnot. So that's looking somewhat, okay, and I can keep going and, add more carousels like before, adding a top picks and actually add ones with like photos, whatnot. But just for time's sake, I'll move on to the like orders page, for example. So I want a list. So for example, I can go right into the assets panel. I'll go into, this will be your published library from the community kit, but in my case, this one. Let's say I want a list. So I'll look into nice. I see that we have a list report already there. So I can easily click into that. Actually, typically I'll like to do this, and then I'll have the page go over it. Oops. Just gonna walk this for now, just make it a little easier. But yeah, I can put that already in there. Lovely. And then I can go in and I can click each of these object cells. And then let's say, okay, so I want tag rows. And then I want a status. Okay, status is already there. Great. So it looks like I have all that I would want there. So then I can go in and I can, for example, let's say if I need 2 status over here, I can click in and I can add 2 status. And then of course I can go in and I can add all of the, desired information that I would want about that. But now looking at we get our nav bar and the system bar in there too. Oops. So, cool. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so for an order details page, hypothetically, you'd be able to go to an object details page. So if I were to go over to our assets again, and I can look up object detail, nice. I have my object details page right here, so I can drop that right in. And of course, as you're designing, you're going to be deleting the layers and whatnot, but this is just for, of course, time's sake, huh? So yeah, you can go into your thing right here. Where are you? Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna put that right onto the details page. Perfect. So I can go in, let's say this is already in a list and whatnot. So this is an object cell. Okay, I don't need that action footer, but I will maybe switch out this object cell for my progress indicator. And then I'll remove my shadows. So it's nice because you can kind of go and you can switch out these contents, and then you can of course like mess around with like the auto layout, whatnot, set it to have contents. So then I can easily have all of my steps right here. Let's say, okay, I have all my step indicators. I can add all the different like step names for them, and you can view all. But I can also see what else I have to add. Yeah, you can also go into your top app bar, for example, and you can add like another like button. So let's say if I need an I label button in an overflow, I'm able to change it to that. And yeah, you can of course kind of switch around to whatever your needs would be, but I would also be able to maybe go in and I can add, instead of a list item, I can do let's say an attachment grade. Attachment form cell we could do. No, there we go. Oops. Okay, well that was not my desired. Trying to do it through here. Oh, here we are. See, it's going through the wrong panel as it goes. Okay, so the attachment form cell. Yeah, you can just add it right into there through that panel and hide. So it looks somewhat kind of close to that. So now, let's say if I wanted to actually click into this details of the order progress, I'm able to, let's say, I want to just get rid of this list report, all of that, and I don't need this content right here, so I can click into the carousel, action view. Let's say I want to switch my top app bar again, so I want my variant to go back. I want it to be left aligned. Oops, small left aligned. And then I can go in to my assets panel once again, and I can look into my step progress indicator. Oops. See, even if you have typos, they still find it. Beautiful thing. And then I'll go to a vertical view, for example, and then I can plug it in right there, and then I'll have all of my steps that I can put in, for example. So now that you kind of have quickly, roughly made up these screens, and you can get in all of the exact information and all of the labels that you would want, eventually you would end up with something similar to this target design over here. So for example, you can kind of see where I got this design right here, and I added in all of the steps, moved down like the recommended for you to the top picks. I looked into all of the like orders, added in all the information for the individual orders. If the user were to click into this multifunctional chair, for example, they'd be able to view that in the details page. And of course, all the attachments, all of the steps are with it. And then if the user wants to look at all of their 6 steps, they're able to click in and they're able to look through this order progress. So now that you have this, beautiful design made from our UI kit, and you think that it's ready and all the information's in there, you can hand it on over to development. So in this case, I'd be handing over to Mark.
Excellent. Thanks, Natalie. Yes, let me share my screen. All right. And as you can see, Natalie and I have been chatting back and forth here in Figma, discussing some of the finer details of the design. But before I dig into the development, I did want to say just a little bit about what SAP Build Code is and where the SDKs fit in. So SAP Build Code is SAP's offering for developers. So it encompasses a lot of different technologies, everything from our CAP, our Cloud Application Programming Model, to more traditional web-based UI development. And then where I live is over in this mobile services area where we have our mobile development kit and our SDKs for iOS and Android. And if you're interested in learning more about our Android SDK, you can go to developers.sap.com, go to the trial downloads area, and you'll find the SDK for Android there freely available to download and kick the tires on. So back to our design. Looks like we've got a lot of work ahead of us here. So first, I'm going to bring up the current application. So looks pretty close to the existing design. I've got the recently viewed in the Discover More area, but yeah, we want to add some ability to view order information. So how do we go about that? I mean, I'm probably not quite ready to go live with the order data yet. So the first thing I'm probably going to want to do is just create some sample data. Now I could go in and look at the data that Natalie's filled in here and then copy that over to some sample data. But because every demo these days needs something related to generative UI, I'm going to go ahead and apply some generative AI here to generate my sample data. So one thing I can do with Figma is I can actually go in to this design. If I get out of developer mode, that would probably help. And select somehow this whole design. And I can export the entire Figma design just as a PNG, which I've done previously. And then I can go into SAP's AI Launchpad, another one of our offerings. This allows customers to just play around with various back-end models. In this case, I'm going to use Google's latest Gemini 1.5 Pro. The great thing about that is it's a multimodal LLM. So what I can do, and I arrived at this prompt with some trial and error, so I can tell Gemini to use the attached screenshot to create some sample data objects, give it some parameters like fill out the sample list with enough items to bring the total number of orders up to 7, because that's what we have in our design mockup. And then I want to be sure to include the delivery status and order type, and then bring in some status tags as well as a product description, and then just some guidelines about keeping the date information as a string, use a placeholder for any images, and then for the various statuses, use an enumeration. And then, as always, we have to tell the AI to explain its work. And also, when I was looking at the design mockups, I noticed some ellipses there, so I'm going to add some additional requirements. So if you see ellipses in a string, complete it with something that, let's see, sounds logical but catchy. And then I just go in and add my screenshot, in this case, the order list screenshot. And let Gemini do its magic. And I see my enumerations there, and a list of sample data. It's picking up all the text off the screenshot, and it's making up some feasible sounding products like the SoundFlow headphones, the Comfort Plus footrest. I could use that, and the Ultra Boost monitor. Those all sound great. So I can copy that output, and I'm going to go over to Android Studio, and let's just make a new file, call it, let's put it in the orders. And if I paste that in and remove all of the commentary, getting clashes with names I've already defined. But you can see it's creating syntactically correct Kotlin code. And it's got some placeholders in there for the menu. But if I work with this, I'll find that I've probably saved myself a few hours of work here of creating the sample data. So let's get out of here and go to the actual sample data that I already created from the previous invocation. Yeah, so here's all the sample data. So going back to my design, see, the first thing I'm going to need is a collection of cards on the home page. So I can actually go in, and this is where Gemini inside Android Studio comes into play. So I find that if I start typing something like in the name of a data object, because Gemini knows about my SDK, it actually starts filling in what it thinks might be logical information here. So in this case, get card order data, it's thinking, oh, I might want to return a list of mobile card data there, which is actually exactly what I want to do. And then if I continue on here, I can start typing in what I might use as a variable name, new orders, and it's actually going to, in this case, it's applying a filter. That's probably not what I want to do at this point. But you can see where, the more Gemini knows about our code, the more helpful it can be as we're actually doing development. So in this case, I've done this previously. So the method to get my card order data is actually down here. So what I'm doing here is for every one of the orders in my sample orders, I'm going to go ahead and create a mobile card data element, pulling in the product name and the product code. In this case, that's what Gemini chose to call the SKU. Some sample images in here. That's one thing that we aren't totally automated with yet, is pulling in the images. So for those, I actually went into Figma, selected the images, and similar to what I did with the screenshots, I went ahead and exported these images as PNG files. And then those I've already copied into the drawables area of my project. So that's what I did with the sample data is I went in and I assigned all of the resource IDs, the drawables inside my sample order data. So that was the one manual piece of fix-up I needed to do. So that looks good. I've got the description, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the extended data, and mapping the order type as well as the order status to the appropriate fields inside the object card. And then looking at the design, yeah, I'm not entirely familiar with the step progress indicator. So if I click into the design here, I can see some helpful information here in the sidebar. And if I go to view documentation, it'll actually take me to the section on the experience.sap.com for the step progress indicator. I can find out some design information, how I should and shouldn't use the step progress indicator, always helpful. Then if I need to know what I want to do as a developer, granted this is geared primarily towards designers, but down here at the bottom, I can find the links to the development resources, and that'll take me to the appropriate page in the documentation for the SAP BTP SDK for Android. Learn more about usage of the step progress indicator. In this case, I'm going to want to map that step progress indicator using a step list. So I'm going to use my delivery status to determine how that step list should appear and what it should show in terms of progress. So going back over to the code, I've created a section, a new section called your orders cards. So this is going to go in and pull in that card data, and then I've already created a preview for it so I can see what this is going to look at, and comparing that side by side with my design. Try and get that side by side. Yep. And Android Studio disappears. Now you can sort of see it's a little transparent there, but yeah, those look pretty close. So go back to my current home screen, and now instead of recently viewed, so comment that out, and I'll put in the new cards section, and let's just go ahead and move this down below for now and fire it up. Let's see where we are. See, my preview is already rendered there with my new card. And there we are. So now we've got a card carousel with all of our current orders. So going back to the design, next thing I'm going to want to do is create a list page. And this I'm already pretty sure I want to use an object cell. So going back over to Android Studio and going back to my order data file, I went ahead and similar to what I did here with get card order data, I also did a get object cell order data. And here, once again, it's just a process of mapping between the fields in my order to the fields in the object cell. So once again, the approval status, the order type, those are all in here. We aren't dealing with the step progress indicator here, but we do want to show our status, delivery status. And if we go back to the design, that's showing up in the substatus field. So go ahead and populate those, and then I'm going to use as the avatar a 40dp version of that same thumbnail that I have in my sample data. So the way that gets linked in is from my main app or my main activity. I've set up a nav graph. So in this case, there's a route to the list screen, and I'm going to link that from my order cards. So if I go into my order screen, it's going to have a header. It's going to have my content with the mobile carousel grid. And then the main thing here is just that, I've got this kind of mocked up for now, but the click handler of my see all 7 link there, that's going to go to my list. So if I go back to the app, that should already be working. And sure enough, when I click on see all, now I'm seeing all of my orders in addition to the ones that I had Gemini make up for me. So that all looks good. So now I need to look at doing a detail page. So looks like I've got an object header here, just the basic header without any of the extra fancy stuff. And then I've got I'm using the progress indicator here as it's going to be a custom composable. And then I've got attachments down below. And yeah, I could probably go ahead and do this all in Compose, but I'm going to do it all manual. But I think I'm going to go back to Gemini again and go ahead and clear this out. And now, let's say using the attached screenshot, create a Jetpack compose screen. Showing the object details. And yeah, thank you, Gemini. I need to give you a screenshot if I'm actually going to make this work. And once again, see Gemini kicking off using all the basic Jetpack Compose components I would expect. It isn't smart enough to know that it already has its sample data, so it's just going ahead and populating that detail with the mockup. And it's looking pretty thorough. Creating my attachments section, as well as some attachment items, and some comments there for cases where I need to go in and place my placeholder images. And it's creating a bottom nav item and then giving some explanatory text. So yeah, this would require a little more work to turn into actual code. Now, if we go ahead and copy that in, You'll see that it is for the most part correct. It's missing a few imports, but yeah, this would give us a good leg up on getting that going. So once again, I've already gone through this exercise. So I have an order details screen. And for this, I'm actually, on all of my screens, I'm using actually created an app bar that I share among all my screens, and a navigation bar along the bottom. That's why you'll see all of these look the same. And then I'll populate my object header. So here once again, using the order sample data, it looks very similar to the object cell because most of the field names are the same. But I'm mapping my title, my subtitle, detail image, tags, status, everything you see here in the preview page. And then I've also put that into my navigation graph. And unlike the home screen and the list screen, which don't take any parameters, my order detail screen accepts the ID, in this case, the ID of whichever item I've clicked on. So once again, this is already hooked into my app. So as soon as I click on one of these object cells, I see my object detail. And here I can see an order that's already been delivered. I'm seeing on my progress indicator it's already gone through all of the first 3 steps. We'll see the final steps in just a moment. Invoice is approved. It's been received by UPS, so it's moving along, but it's it's expected delivery in another week or so, a little less than a week actually. And so I'll be looking for that to show up on my doorstep if I were Jim. All right, so that leaves the final step here, which is the ability to view the entire progress, all of the steps. We want to see the entire process. So for that, I created a order progress screen. This is pretty simple. This is just essentially the same stepper progress that I used in my horizontal mode, but all I did was I changed the node direction to vertical. And this is just, other than that, just essentially the same page that I've used for all of my other elements, which I can see over here in the preview. And sure enough, if I go and click on all steps, I can see the entire process end to end. And if I go back to one of the items I've already received, I can see the entire process has completed. So that about ends my initial application development. So now I can hand my APK off to Natalie, and we can do another round of collaboration back and forth. I can tell by looking at some of the designs that she had mocked up and comparing that to my actual application. There's probably some padding that needs to be tweaked and a few other changes I can make. But I think overall we're off to a good start, and our collaboration can continue. So, yeah. With that, and back to Natalie for any closing comments, and we're available for questions.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, as Mark said, typically at this point, we'll go back and forth. We'll use Figma comments, Teams messages, whatever your preferred communication is. And I'm sure that by the end of this release, Jim will be very happy now that we've gone through these iterations. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Natalie, and thanks, Mark, for this fantastic session. We actually do have another session coming up about the iOS SDK, so make sure to check that one out. and also all the other sessions on Devtoberfest. There's a validation tutorial in the description of this video that you can check out to get points towards the grand prize of Devtoberfest. And with that, I say bye, and thanks everyone for watching.